Although Oregon's woodsy settings and spectacular vistas had been used sporadically in movies almost since the advent of Hollywood filmmaking, by the 1920s, the state had its own thriving film industry. Life on the farm was just one of a steady stream of relatively inexpensive five-reelers turned out by the many Portland-based production companies during the silent era. This building, believe it or not, used to be a film laboratory. It's all that's left now of the old premium Beaverton Studios, one of 3 studios that operated in the Portland area from the time just after World War I until the early 30s. All 3 of them turned out a full program of films for independent distributors. Names like the Sunbeam Film Company, Lithograph Pictures, the Moomaw Studios, and Josh Benny Comedies didn't leave much of an imprint on film history. But they kept a generation of local filmmakers and technicians, including cameraman Gary Shields, working, not to mention the actors they employed. Did they use local actors, or did they have to bring actors up from Hollywood, or where did they get
the leading actors up? And then we had several people around here that was good. There was Monty Wax, who ran a record shop, and he was a very good actor. And Paris Emery, who was in the fire department, was a very good actor, and he also became a cameraman. And May Maythought was used some, and she was Jack LeMond's, and then later Humphrey Bogart's wife, you know, the battling Bogarts. She came from here. And then we used the police a lot for extras. They were really better than the ones we could pick up, because they knew how to take orders, and you could tell them to do something and they go right out and do it. You didn't have to rehearse a lot.
Of course, the big Hollywood companies also ventured up to Oregon during the silent era. Buster Keaton's The General is probably the most famous movie of that period shot in the state. The locations were around Cottage Grove. The Depression and increased costs associated with the coming of sound put an end to the native film industry. The California movie companies continued to make the trek to the Northwest on occasion, usually when they needed spectacular scenery. Many a star has fond memories of working here.
40 years ago, made a film there called Thunderhead, which was the sequel to My Friend Flicker. It's some of the most beautiful country I've ever seen. Multnomah County racetrack and Multnomah Falls. Very beautiful up there.
Possibly the best use any movie has ever made of the Oregon landscape was in Bend to the River, the Anthony Mann Western starring Jimmy Stuart and Rock Hudson. Besides the central presence of Mount Hood and the thrilling race up the Columbia River, Bend to the River had scenes depicting a wild and woolly frontier settlement called Portland. Another 50s film was less flattering to Portland's image. Sensationalistic depictions of scandals in middle American cities had become a B-movie vogue, and our city's own Shrunk Commission provided fodder for the most bizarre of Oregon film sagas, Portland Exposé.
Portland was now in the midst of a mob war. The syndicate gave no quarter. They quickly began to stamp out all local opposition. Using a phony labor union, they enforced their demands on the businessmen of Portland.
This exploitative cheapie used such locations as Hill Villa Restaurant, Union Station, and the Steel Bridge. It earned its makers a few bucks and was quickly forgotten. Filmmakers liked the cooperation they get from Oregonians. In 1970, the Kansas City Bomber Production Company used thousands of locals as spectators when they staged roller derby games at the PI building. But crowds even gathered outside the neighborhood houses where they were shooting. In those days, of course, television stations didn't have knowledgeable entertainment reporters, so they had to make do with whomever was around.
That portion of the film requiring use of this house has now been completed, and producers move on to another location where undoubtedly the curious, the crowds will find them. The producers are hopeful those crowds will keep coming during the roller game sequence at the PI building. Paul Inman for Eyewitness News.
The 1970s saw the beginning of a new, increasingly frequent migration of movie companies to Oregon. Big budgets accompanied Lee Marvin and Clint Eastwood to the state for Paint Your Wagon. 2 novels by Oregon's literary luminary Ken Kesey, including One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, placed the state indelibly on Hollywood's map of the world. Then John Landis showed up in Eugene to shoot a little picture called Animal House at the University of Oregon. He found everyone exceedingly cooperative, And by the way, Landis is the one with the beard in this interview.
President Boyd, William Boyd. I thought, Hopalong Cassidy? But it was another William Boyd. He liked the script very much, and he said, you're welcome to shoot here. We shot, not only did we shoot at the University of Oregon, but the dean's office in the film is President Boyd's office. And all the rooms are the real places. That we only built 2 sets, and they were built on the Armory in Eugene for cover sets. And we had wonderful cooperation from them. I must tell you, we were not thrown out, but we were rejected by like 3 or 4 other universities around the country once they read the script.
The favorable experiences of people like Landis, Michael Douglas, and Saul Zaentz, the producer of Cuckoo's Nest, have given Oregon a real edge in today's intense competition among the states to land lucrative film projects. This year alone, Oregon has co-starred in Stand By Me, Rob Reiner's sleeper of a hit, and Short Circuit, which worked on locations around Astoria and in the Columbia Gorge. Their success is like a billboard, luring future movies to Oregon. But in today's competitive climate, with all the states vying for the millions movie companies spend, billboards alone aren't enough. John Landis recognized that problem in 1978. Does the state of Oregon have a
Film commission.
Yes, a film commission, a liaison
committee to
bring business in?
It has some guy in an office someplace who's very bad. I can say that now that the film is finished. We had nothing to do with him. He was not a help to us. In fact, the state of Oregon should the governor was smart. He should hire some smart guy to start hustling. They have films made up here. It's beautiful here. Cuckoo's Nest was made here. There was a lot of films made up here. We left over $1 million in this town, so I think they were pretty happy. We employed several thousand people.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Be seated.
You know, you could almost swear that Oregon's become more popular among the Hollywood crowd lately. The shooting for this HBO film, The Last Innocent Man, just wrapped up a little over a week ago in Portland. Long after the camera and crew are gone, more than $1 million will stay behind in the Oregon economy. That's a pretty big investment, but one the producer of this film, Ron Silverman, was willing to make. And he told our film critic Stuart Rosenthal why.
Because a good part of this film is a courtroom drama, we do need courtrooms. And had this county not been able to make the courtrooms available to us, even though we would like to have shot here, we would not have been able to. Fortunately, the county did. We have been able to use 2 different courtrooms, as a matter of fact, and wonderful courtrooms, old, nice textures and character, and it's really for those 2 reasons that we're here.
The other reason Silverman was talking about concerns the setting.
How would you characterize his patronage?
Well, I'd say he came here because the original book and screenplay for The Last Innocent Man were both set in Portland. Add to that the cooperation of people in Oregon, and that makes Pat Matzdorf's job of promoting movie locations a lot easier.
In Los Angeles, I don't know if it's the crime rate or what, but the courtrooms are full, and there's no way that they can clear a schedule to film there. We were able to do that for them. So you have to have the location first. But it certainly does help that you've got the people behind the scenes that are really willing and able to help them.
We're in Judge Eunice's courtroom, and he's been very gracious to let us be in there, and he's been very helpful to me. He lent me a couple books, and also Philip Margolin, who's a Portland attorney, is the foreman in the jury of this one trial that's going on, and he's always there to ask questions of, and so it's been, I think it's seeming pretty real to me. I mean, I hope so.
3, 2, 1, explode!
The movie Short Circuit brought an explosion of cash to Oregon, $4 million worth last year. That's made 1986 a little slow by comparison.
But we're doing very well. This has been a really good summer for us. We've had an awful lot of national commercials filmed here. 3 movies for television. Currently, we're filming a movie for HBO. We had 1 feature film here this year. I think the biggest thing is going down to Los Angeles. We attended a trade show last February, and people were surprised that we were there. And, oh, you really want our business? And gee, we thought you guys closed your doors to things like this. And so being there and being visible, it's helping us an awful lot.
Fish! Salmon! Sushi!